Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening, and welcome to Primetime Sports. Well, some are calling it the best Super Bowl of all time. Well, I'm not too sure about that. They've been some great ones, but it certainly was the biggest comeback in the 51-year history of the game, and perhaps, in my opinion, it might have been the greatest comeback in all of sports, and it also featured one of the greatest catches you'll ever see in Super Bowl history. That, of course, by Julian Edelman. We'll talk about comparing that catch to the one David Tyree had about 10 years ago in the show. We're going to get into all that later with Lyons Yellin from WWL, but no one can deny that this has been one of the most thrilling calendar years for finishes, for electric ones at that, in recent history. I got to tell you, remember it all started back last April when Chris Jenkins hit that incredible shot against North Carolina at the buzzer to give Villanova their first national championship in over 30 years. It was a thriller. We're going to talk a lot about Villanova today in all college basketball with John Brady. We'll get into that too. But I'm going to say this. A couple months later, do you remember what happened with Cleveland? They became the first team in NBA Finals history to come back from being down 3-1. And oh, by the way, they had to do it against a team that was 73-9 in the Golden State Warriors, a team, by the way, that was going for more history and the greatest record, and they didn't get that repeat. And then who could forget last fall? The Chicago Cubs. That's right, they came back as well from a 3-1 deficit to win their first World Series championship in over 100 years. It truly was incredible, and this Super Bowl just was the cherry on top of the whipped cream. I've got to tell you, it was a phenomenal year, and hopefully it'll continue as we go further. Hey, big news for here in the Crescent City. How about this? Morton Anderson, the greatest kicker of all time, the NFL's leading scorer, finally gets into the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame. He will join the only other two New Orleans Saints players we have, Ricky Jackson, of course, from the Dome Patrol, and the great offensive lineman, Willie Roaf. And by the way, we know who number 4 will be. Drew Brees, when the time comes for him to retire and wait the 5-year requisite. Hey, let's go to the NBA. It was a great night in NBA basketball last night. The Cleveland Cavaliers, I got to tell you, they won an amazing overtime thriller versus the Washington Wizards, 140-135. That doesn't tell it all. LeBron James, if you didn't see it, he hit, to me, the shot at the buzzer. It was about a 27-footer fading in, out of bounds. Lucky he kept his feet in, off the glass, just to tie the game up. An incredible play, and for my money, like I said, it was the best of the season. How about the Miami Heat? They started the first half of the season 11 wins and 30 losses. Well, guess what they're doing so far in the second half? 11-0. That's right, 0 losses, 11 wins compared to what they did before. And by the way, are you listening, Pelicans? Last night, the Pels snapped a 4-game losing streak. They beat Phoenix 111-106. AD had 34 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Drew Holiday 30, 9, 7, and 3. Jahlil Okafor, the rumor is he might be coming to New Orleans. We'll see. By the way, my guest this week, there's no Jamie Howard, former quarterback, couldn't make it because his family is sick. But we have NBA Finalist coach Mike Dunleavy, Final Four coach John Brady, and Lyons Yellin to talk about all things under the sun right here on Primetime Sports. Stay tuned. Welcome back, Louisiana. I get to say that now instead of just New Orleans. Louisiana, Arkansas, the Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida Gulf Coast, East Texas, and parts of several other states. Welcome back, by the way. I got to thank E.T., Ephraim Towns from Dirty Dozen Brass Band for giving us those tunes. But hey, this next guest, well, he's probably been my most frequent guest. In fact, there's not a doubt he has. His name is Lyons Yellin. He's with WLAE-TV. And the reason I have him on today is because I want to talk Super Bowl, and I want to talk some Morton Anderson. We might get into a couple other topics if there's time. But I watched the game with you this week, Lyons.
You did, man. Thank you for having me. Man, you're like not only taking over New Orleans, but the rest of America as well. So congratulations.
Very small part of America, but we'll take whatever we can get.
Hey, one step at a time.
Hey, I got to ask you, we were watching the game. Obviously, it was a Falcons win for about 3 quarters. And I remember specifically, because we were at the same gig, that I looked at you and I said, it's 28-3. Even if the Patriots get 3 touchdowns and 3 2-point conversions, they'll still be a point down. But
we thought there was no chance. I mean, and I think the rest of the country did. I've heard stories about people leaving the stadium to be trafficked. They didn't want to stick around to the end. I mean, when you think about it, the odds were, I saw the Washington Post tweeted something about they had a 91% chance the Falcons did. At that point, up 28-3.
Well, then it got to 99 because when it was 2.5 minutes left, they do this by the minute and they upgraded. But it got to 99. I knew that there might be a slight chance. 21-3, I still thought there was a chance. 28-3 is like, I think like the rest of America, I'm like, this is really getting out of hand.
Right.
But as far as the game goes, what were your thoughts? First of all, let's talk about the local guys that did great. We're in Louisiana. Jalen Collins played great. Tyson Jackson played great. But the 2 guys that stand out, the rookie from Jesuit, also, of course, LSU Tiger, Debo Jones, and he's a middle linebacker starting, which is pretty remarkable as a rookie, as well as, the cornerback, Robert Alford, with the touchdown, the pick 6, the first against Tom Brady in any playoff game.
Both of them played fantastic. And Alford almost got his hands on a second interception. We all know what happened there, that tremendous catch by Edelman. But Debo Jones is, man, he's so fast. He ran that 4.39 40 at his pro day at LSU last year. He's about 6'2", 220 pounds. He is so fast. He's the new prototypical linebacker, middle linebacker in the NFL, a guy who can play all 3 downs, cover sideline to sideline. He's had a tremendous season, and I think he's only a rookie. And this Atlanta defense with I believe they have 6 or 7 first or second year players that are starters. I mean, I think they're just beginning. We're just beginning to see what this defense can be under Dan Quinn.
Well, it's kind of scary because Deion Jones did not start till his senior year, and he was projected at first to be maybe a 4th or 5th rounder. Then he obviously had the combine, and everybody's like, wow, he might be a 3rd rounder. And then he gets picked in the 2nd. You're wondering, is this a reach? And he's proven everybody wrong.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it goes to show also Quan Alexander proved everybody wrong the year before as a 4th-round pick for Tampa Bay. And now you got a guy like Duke Riley coming in this year. Those LSU linebackers, I think, the 220 to 230 range that can run the way they do. I tell you what, these NFL teams need them, especially in this day and age when offenses are trying to spread these teams out. And you really need somebody to compete, to be able to keep up with all this speed on offense.
Yeah, there's big Louisiana contingent, by the way. There were 7 total players. 4, of course, we talk about the guys on Atlanta's team. Barkevius Mingo, who used to be with the Browns, is now a Patriot. He was in the game, as well as 2 high school guys from Louisiana that played for the Patriots. But as far as the game, let's get into this. Matt Ryan was the MVP of the season. He obviously got the duel. He got the offensive MVP and the MVP. Sometimes they split it up, like when Drew and Manning did in 2009. One got the MVP, one got the Offensive Player of the Year. But when you looked at this team coming in with Matt Ryan, I told you I thought it was going to be a Patriots game. You went the other way, you were almost right. You were like, this could be a blowout on the Falcons side, and for a while you were Nostradamus.
Yeah, I thought I was right. I was kind of poking you a little bit.
You were right, actually. I mean, listen, this is other than the comeback.
Look, Matt Ryan was fantastic. Yeah. Julio Jones, what a game he had. They probably should have gone to him a little bit more, but the balance that the Falcons showed early on, Devonta Freeman running the ball, Tevin Coleman coming in to kind of spell him a little bit. And then you have Sanu. I mean,
Taylor Gabriel made a huge catch.
Big catches. He threw touchdowns to 13 different wide receivers, 13 different offensive players this season. That's fantastic. And Matt Ryan had a perfect passer rating in the first half. But then you look at the plays, the final play count. New England ran 93 plays, Atlanta 46.
That's incredible.
That is a huge discrepancy. And you know what? It reminded me of the national championship game. Alabama's defense was on the field so long, forced to defend Deshaun Watson for I think it was 90, 100 plays,
Yep,
something like
same
that.
kind of game.
Same
You're right,
kind
right,
of game.
right.
And in the end, you just knew that the Patriots had so much more gas than Atlanta's defense in the end. And when an offense has that advantage down the stretch, I mean, when they went to overtime, what we both agree, we were like, this is the Patriots game.
It's Patriots. The momentum was there.
Absolutely.
And by the way, they still had to get a couple 2-point conversions. Remember, Gostkowski missed an extra point, so they had to get an extra one in there. But they got a couple 2-point conversions to get there. Those aren't easy to get.
No, in the foresight of Bill Belichick, and I think this speaks to what a phenomenal coach he is. The foresight, knowing he said we had 2, 3, 4 2-point conversions that they worked on during the week because they thought they could find themselves in a position like that. So to be ready for that, to have 2-point conversions that you know that you have prepared for, that you think can be effective against the defense, man, well, that's what the great coaches do. They have the ability to have that kind of foresight, to know what kind of game it could be and be prepared for all eventualities.
Well, the trophy is called the Lombardi Trophy, and most say he's the greatest coach of all time. But has Belichick taken this now? I mean,
I think so.
He's got 5 titles. Is that the standard bearer that we look at, the number of titles, or just that he's been in the playoffs literally 17 years in a row?
Well, I think it's more than that. Yeah, I think it's the consistency. I think with the way the NFL is structured these
days,
the parity,
right, no doubt.
Look, it's not built for dynasties. The NFL, look, the best team picks last. They play the first place team every year. So I think to be able to have so many championship teams, to have these 5 Super Bowls now, he had 2 as an assistant, so that's 7.
He was 2 plays away from 2
right,
more. He was almost at 7, if not for the crazy plays by David Tyree and obviously Mario Manningham with Eli Manning.
To be able to do this in this day and age with so many different players. I mean, you look at some of these great teams, the Steelers of the past, even back to Green Bay. I mean, they had several Pro Bowlers on those teams. Beyond Tom Brady and Randy Moss for his brief spell in New England, there haven't been many Pro Bowlers on these teams. It's a bunch of no-name guys,
impressive.
And they get the best out of everyone who plays on that team. They take guys who are cast-offs from other teams that have been problems in the locker room, and they shine them up. And I tell you what, he has the ability to get the best out of everyone like no other coach I've ever seen in football.
Well, speaking of, let's look at the quarterback we see right here. We're going to see a lot of Tom Brady shots because I've got to give him his due. I'm a Montana guy, have been a Montana guy for a long time, so cool under pressure. Obviously, we know the Super Bowl where he beat the Cincinnati Bengals, where he took the long drive and the touchdown pass to John Taylor. Well, the same thing. I told you. I said 91 yards that Brady had to go just to get it to overtime. And I said this could be his Joe Montana moment. Every Super Bowl has been close. This has been the biggest deficit, 6 points in the 7 Super Bowls they played. That's crazy. But that said, he got it done. Is he the greatest of all time?
Absolutely. I mean, look. How do you want to judge this? Do you want to judge this on championships? Okay, well, he's got 5 Super Bowl championships. Do you want to judge it on regular season wins, consecutive playoff streaks, MVP? I mean, the guy has done it all. He's proven year in and year out that he is the best quarterback in the league, and he does it with a cast of characters from other teams, guys that he's developed relationships with. I mean, he hasn't had the best receiver in football year in and year out.
One time, that's it. One time. In 2007, he had Moss.
And look,
other than that, never.
After they lost Gronkowski, they won 8 straight games. I mean, that's the second best player on their team. So
crazy.
He is a fantastic quarterback. He's a fantastic leader. He sets the tone for that team along with Belichick, and he's always prepared.
What's the deal with the MVPs not winning? I mean, it's like 8 times recently where Tom Brady himself was an MVP. He didn't win one year. I know Peyton Manning against the Saints, he didn't win. When he was with the Broncos, set all those records, they lost to Seattle. What's it with the MVP losing in the Super Bowl so many times in a row?
Well, look, when you have the media vote on anything, I don't think they necessarily always get it right, and the criteria they use is varied, and they're looking at the whole body of work. And obviously this season with Tom Brady missing 4 games, I think that probably worked a little bit against him. But
Matt Ryan had a great year,
and I think he was deserving of the MVP this year. He really did. His complete body of work was fantastic. He was great in the playoffs. So I can't really. There's no knock on him for being the MVP.
But does this put him in the echelon of Brady, Rodgers, Drew Brees? I mean, because is he not Drew Brees with Drew Brees right now in Drew Brees' career? Does 38-year-old next season? Is he not equal with Drew yet?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think there are levels to how good quarterbacks can be, and I think that while he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, he hasn't won a championship yet, and I think that is the next step for him is to be able to lead his team to a championship. We saw he made a few mistakes down the stretch. I'm not going to blame the loss on him, but you know,
and Kyle Shanahan actually had 5 rushing plays after they had the 25-point lead. Let's not get into that, but
Okay.
I do want to kind of talk about the catch, because I remember a lot of people were talking about Tyree, but you were sitting next to me. The moment it happened, I said, that's David Tyree, because the way the ball looked like it was going to hit the ground, and it didn't touch the ground, much like when Tyree was pulled down by Rodney Harrison, and he had the ball in his helmet, and we're like, how did he hold on? It's right here. I mean, the ball was it's not David Tyree, in my opinion, because of this was first down, that was the third, and they had to get the catch, but it's pretty much the moment for New England.
Absolutely. I mean, that from that point on, you just kind of felt like they were going to win.
It was 28-20 at the time.
Right. You just felt like they had something magical going on. That catch, it was so similar to those big catches that had plagued the Patriots in those other 2 Super Bowls.
There's the other one we're talking about.
Right.
And you see how close it gets to the ground in this one. But when you compare the two, everybody's been doing it.
Yeah, you know what? That was all Julian Edelman. Eli Manning had something to do escaping the pressure, but that was all Julian Edelman right there. It wasn't a very good thrown ball.
Look at this. This is the best safety in the league and the strongest one trying to take you down.
And think about
it. It didn't touch the ground. It's
With
crazy.
the Edelman catch, there were 3 guys right there. I mean, the concentration, the ability to hold on to that ball, you're talking about an inch off the ground. Unbelievable.
All right, I got to talk about what's big in this town. Hall of Famers are few and far between. We've had Ricky Jackson, recently Willie Roaf.
Right.
And now we have a third. His name is Morton Anderson. You see the class. He's wearing a Falcons thing there. Saints fans, forgive me, because I need the group picture. But I have a bunch of Saints picks. But Terrell Davis, a short career, but it was mighty good. LT, no doubt about it. Kurt Warner, for sure. Kenny Easley, if you're an old timer like you, remember his great play with the Seahawks. Jason Taylor and Jerry Jones were the questionable ones because Terrell Owens didn't get in. But let's talk about Morton first.
You got to have a kicker in the Hall of Fame.
There's only one, Johnston.
Yes, and Morton Anderson is the all-time leading scorer in NFL history. You got to have him in the. You got to have him in the Hall of Fame.
You can't write history without having the NFL's leading scorer in your game not be in the Hall of Fame.
And until recently, he was the leading scorer for the
2
Saints
franchises
and for the Falcons. I mean, he was on the All-Decade team in 3 decades. The guy has done it all. He did it over such a long period of time, and was a good guy in the process. Not that should matter, but it's just good. It's just good.
We'll lead us into TO because it matters. So Terrell Owens did not make it, and we know he's third all time in yardage, in reception yards, third all time in
153 touchdowns.
And he was a great, but only in my opinion, as a player, there's Jerry Rice and there's Randy Moss, and to me, Terrell is maybe the 3rd greatest receiver of all time.
It bothers me so much that he's not in the Hall of Fame. He absolutely deserves to be. Obviously, he's not in there right now because he was a cancer in the locker room. People called him selfish, and they didn't like his attitude. But the fact is, he was the ultimate competitor. He made everyone around him better. He was one of the best receivers in football for a generation, and he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. And it is absolutely ridiculous that he's not. I hope he goes in next year, but these guys need to start judging players on what they do on the field, not by the type of person.
I get you. You got your soapbox, and I'm glad you used it. Hey, real quick though, what's your early Morton Anderson? You were younger, because I think I was in college and then maybe post college when he was with the Saints. But you were around. What's your first? Do you remember Morton Anderson?
Yeah,
what's your first game?
I remember him. Back then the Saints weren't as good, and he was always the best player when your kicker's the best player on your team.
But the 87 and 92, they had the second best record in the NFL, other than San Francisco. They just couldn't win a playoff game, but it was all Dome Patrol and Morton. Hey, just stop them, Bobby. Don't screw this up, and then Morton, you kick the field goal.
It was great having him in the sense you always knew, he was going to make that. He was going to make a field goal, but at the same time, the Saints relied on him so much. The offense, it was frustrating because then they'd go into that prevent offense, that conservative offense, and just wait for Morton Anderson to kick a field goal because you knew he was going to make it.
Well, he's my all-around go-to guy. His name is Lyons Yellin. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you coming on again. Here, you're going to have stock in these restaurants.
Man, I can't wait to go. I got to try it out.
Chez Delichet is a great wine bistro. Check it out. Hey, check him out on WWL. I mean, he is the guy. I'm telling you what, Lyons, Yellin, WWL, you get him and Doug and Leslie. They do a great job over there. Hey, speaking of my guy, well, my basketball guy, he's next. At the end of the show, we're going to have an NBA championship coach. Well, he got to the finals with Magic Johnson. His name's Mike Dunleavy. But right now, during this time of year, all the way through the end of March Madness at the very least, we're going to have John Brady. And right now, we're going to talk about the national landscape and some of our favorite players in college basketball as well. Coming up next, right here on Primetime Sports.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my, oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lane's the home of rock and roll.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934. It is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
The owners of the Delichet's Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delichet, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delichet, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Welcome back, New Orleans and the rest of Louisiana and the Gulf Coast and Arkansas and Texas, too, to Primetime Sports. Hey, we just had Lyons, Yellin talking Super Bowl and, of course, Morton Anderson getting into the Hall of Fame finally. But now we're going to turn our attention to basketball. I have Mike Dunleavy, the head coach for the Tulane Green Wave, coming up next. That's right, he coached Magic Johnson in the finals against Michael Jordan. He was their head coach, longtime NBA career, and even longer as an NBA coach. That's next. But we have a Final Four coach like we do every week right here. It's called Hoops with John Brady, or John Brady on Hoops is what we decided on. But here he is every week for our weekly until the end of the basketball season. We're going to catch you up on all the things you don't know about college basketball with one of the best, Final Four coach John Brady. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Let's jump right into it.
Okay.
We're going to get to the best teams in the country, in our opinion. We talked about some of them last week, but let's talk about our own team, the LSU Tigers, locally. They have a big game against Kentucky tonight. They're playing as we speak. And by the way, they've had some recent success. They beat Kentucky. Of course, they had a guy named Ben Simmons to help them do so. Right. And even the previous year when Kentucky was undefeated, LSU had them all the way to the very end. So they've had success. But this is a little bit different. They go to Rupp Arena, and this team, well, they're on a little bit of a losing streak.
Well, certainly the circumstances are different of the games you talked about with LSU playing Kentucky the last couple of years. But, and Kentucky's going to be ready because of the way they played. At Florida got them pretty good. But I think sometimes, and the only point about LSU is sometimes when teams are in the situation LSU is in, sometimes they feel more comfortable maybe playing on the road than they do at home because of all the negativity that they hear and feel when they walk on their home court. So I wouldn't be surprised if they played well and if they competed well. Now, whether they win the game or not, that's another discussion. But I think sometimes a team may play better on the road than they do at home when things are going on as they are.
But that said, the Big Blue, and they've lost 3 out of 4. I mean, granted, 2 are SEC road games. That's never easy. And then, obviously, they had the big home loss to Kansas. If they lose to LSU, those fans in Kentucky are going to be going nuts.
I didn't say they're going to lose.
All right.
But I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if LSU competed and played fairly well.
Because you know what it is in Kentucky. It's what have you done for me lately, John Calipari, and with all the success. Speaking of teams that do well, obviously Kentucky is going to be in the picture. We've talked a little bit with them and Marcus Monk last week. But I got to talk about what we didn't get to last week. Villanova, the national champions last season. a little bit of a surprise, but they were a 2 seed. It's not like it was unheard of. When they got to the Final Four, you and former Tulane coach Ed Conroy sat right here on this show, and you both said, now that these Michigan State's eliminated, I like Villanova. You liked them then, and do you still like them now?
I like them a lot because of their perimeter play. Their perimeter play is maybe the best in the country. They take care of the ball, they're efficient, and they can shoot it from the three. And I think Hart and Brunson and Jenkins are three of the best perimeter players in the country, particularly Hart. I love his game.
Number 3, that's Josh Hart right there.
I love his game.
Yep.
I love his shooting percentage from the three. I love his ability to not only defend, but he is also a good rebounder for a guard too. So, you know, Villanova's perimeter play, they traditionally had good guards. They've got good guards now, and they may be as good as anybody in the country in terms of taking care of the ball, sharing the ball, and making big plays at the right time.
Well, listen, Chris Jenkins, let's put that up. He hit the big shot last year, obviously to win it, when Carolina thought that they had tied the game with a crazy 3 themselves. Chris Jenkins, you see, that's not 5 seconds. That's 0.5 on the clock. It doesn't get any more Cinderella than that for Jay Wright, the head coach, to win it, and Chris Jenkins and Villanova to get their first title since '85.
Well, I'll tell you another thing about Jay Wright and what he's doing in terms of coaching that team is last year he kind of snuck up on some people. He wasn't picked to go to the Final Four and that sort of thing. This year he's been highly ranked. They've met the expectation level to this point. And that's why I think he's doing an outstanding job coaching a team that has a high expectation level and also meeting that expectation level at this particular time
So
of the season.
far, but you know what? In the past, they haven't. I mean, there are times when Villanova, and rightfully so, was a 1 or 2 seed, and a lot of times 1, and then they get bounced in the second round occasionally, and now he's proven, hey, I took a team that maybe wasn't supposed to win it, but they were supposed to go far. Not only did we get to the Final Four, we won it. What does that mean going into the next year in confidence for him?
Well, I think knowing that you've done it, knowing that you've been there and the experience that you have and carry that over into the next season. And I think a lot of times you have to guard against that in your preparation in terms of the season coming up and how you prepare your team in the practice. And evidently the decisions he's made, the plan he has, it's in place. He's done well. He's held them accountable. He's kept their egos in check, so to speak, and they're a very, very good basketball team. And I think they're an Elite 8 team with a break, the matchups. You never know how it's going to be in the NCAA tournament. They could go to the Final Four again.
And they might win. Hey, by the way, it helps to have all those returning players, which is kind of rare in college. A lot of them just go pro. But these are guys that are kind of right below the pro echelon, will probably be drafted maybe in the NBA like Jalen Brunson, particularly Josh Hart and Chris Jenkins. But they've got guys that are back, and that includes Malik Bridges too. I
think Hart's a mid-first round draft pick right now. I think the reason he came back was to improve his three-point shooting. You know, last year his three-point shot wasn't as good. Now he's got it 40% and plus, and I think that's going to enhance his draft status.
All right, another team I want to get to we didn't really touch on last week was Kansas. Kansas, by the way, this shows you how good they are. They've lost 2 of their last 4 games, 1 to West Virginia, and then this weekend I watched the entire overtime loss. First time they lost in like 55 games at home, and that was to Iowa State. And they won a close one last night against Kansas State, but I love the way this team plays, particularly my guy Frank Mason, man. 4-year guy, senior, averaging 21 points a game, shooting 52% from 3. He's great, and this team is going to be there in the end.
Well, they mirror Villanova in a way because their 3 perimeter players match what Villanova can do in the perimeter. Mason shoots better from the 3, 52%, than he does from the 2. He's shooting 51% overall.
That sounds like Scott Alexander.
Yeah, in his dreams, maybe.
Right.
So
exactly.
His ability to not only score baskets, he's also leading them in assists. So you get a point guard like that understands how to involve other players at the same time, make big baskets, put up big numbers. That's a real plus to have as a point guard on a championship team.
Hey, the 3-ball, that was magic, Barry. We could fill that thing up. The 2-ball, not so much. Hey, let's talk about other teams that are in the running. Let's touch real quick on Gonzaga. They are number 1. We touched on them last week. We talked about some of their players and their transfers, but what about the head coach, Mark Few? People will be surprised. This guy's been there for 18 years, and they're number 1, 24-0. I know their conference is a little weaker, but can we take them seriously at tournament time?
I think you're going to have to, but Mark Few was there as an assistant coach.
With Monson.
Yeah, with Monson, and then when he left, he got the head coaching job, so he's been there forever. And I think a lot of times schools like Gonzaga, when they have a coach they're comfortable with, he represents the values of the university, he's an outstanding coach, they've stuck with him, and I think he's built a quality program. I think they have a conference game coming up with St. Mary's or someone that may be the only one they'll lose. They could go undefeated in conference. And, you know, it looks like to me right now they'll be a #1 seed in the NCAA tournament provided they keep doing what they're doing.
The next 4 ranked teams, I just want to throw them out there and get your quick opinion on if you think any of these are real players in there. At the moment, Rick Pitino, even though they lost last night in Virginia, they did sit 4 key players. They're number 4. You have Oregon, who played perhaps the most exciting game I've seen this season when they came back from 4 down with like 10 seconds to beat UCLA. That was amazing. And then you have Baylor and Wisconsin. Are any of these teams we can believe in?
I think Oregon's a team you need to watch. And it's too bad about Louisville. I think Pitino was feeling good about his team and how they're playing, and all of a sudden they have these distractions that come up, and it cost him a game on the road at Virginia. But, you know, even if his team was healthy, he had all 4 of those players there, they still could have lost the game at Virginia anyway. So I don't think it's a bad loss for them. But I really like the way Oregon's playing. I like what they've done lately. They're coached out very well, and they understand how to defend and rebound. And I think any team of those teams we mentioned that can defend it and rebound it when their shooting is not there, they have a chance to win games and be a special team, particularly at NCAA tournament time.
All right, well, the Pelicans are kind of in that spot where they, you know, it's a bad year. I'm not going to get on the Pelicans. I'm just giving you an example of a guy I want to play for the Pelicans. His name is Lonzo Ball. And if you haven't seen much of UCLA, this is a 3. He averages 8 assists from the small forward position, although he's kind of a point forward too. He has the ball in his hands. Very smooth player. I think he'd fit great with the Pelicans. If you know, he's going to go out and probably be a top 2 pick, but if they can get that low. But the fact is, he's a great player for UCLA. Very smooth.
Well, a lot of people consider him the best freshman in the country. He not only has size, he has skill level, and he can shoot the ball. And anytime you have that type of combination of size with skill, ability to pass it, rebound it, and then shoot it on top of that, it really makes for a player that's going to be highly drafted.
Yeah, he's good too, by the way. And the thing is, when he gets in, he's that motor. And I'm looking for a guy. The Pelicans seem to sometimes be stuck in transition at times. Drew Holiday had a great game last night, and they have guys that can do it, but they need some more excitement from that 3 position. But moving forward, you know, another player that you like, we talked about him last week. I got to bring him up since we're talking about favorite players. For me, it's Frank Mason and Lonzo Ball. You like the kid from Kentucky, don't you?
I love Mr. Monk. I think he's not only skilled as a guard, he's extremely athletic. He can score it. He's learning what a good shot, bad shot is. I think John Calipari is great for him in helping him develop his game. He's from a small town in Arkansas, so hitting the Kentucky situation has probably been a little overwhelming for him, but I think John Calipari is great for him. But a guard with some size, ability to pass it and play make, and then also make big shots, and he can make big shots.
Look at this is a 6'3" guy tomahawking like it's nothing.
Extremely athletic.
Extremely.
So that's a great combination to have, and he's also, if he chooses to come out, which I would say he would, he's a top 10 pick in my opinion.
All right, one more thing I got to say. 13 of the top 25 lost this past week. The week before, and 11 of them to non-ranked opponents.
That's right.
The week before, 9 losses in the top 10 teams. 7 teams lost, a couple of them lost twice. We're going to have some parity in a fun NCAA tournament?
I think all of that lends itself to having a wide open, exciting, unpredictable NCAA tournament. And the biggest thing I'm going to think is how is the NCAA committee going to seed these teams? With all the upsets and everything that's happening, how are they going to seed the teams? And it's going to be an exciting, unpredictable NCAA tournament, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, this is going to be every week, y'all. We're going to get John Brady each and every week. We're going to be talking NCAA basketball. We're going to upgrade it when it gets closer, give you more and more time, and then hopefully we'll have some fun with maybe possibly even my newest Facebook friend, Richard Williams, who you know well.
I get another Final Four coach.
Morton Anderson was my new friend last week. Now it's Richard Williams. Knowing you is getting dividends right here. So Richard Williams and hopefully our boy Daddy Dale Brown, we're looking forward to possibly having a big show right around March Madness time with all these Final Four coaches. That's John Brady. We're going to see him each and every week, and I do appreciate him taking the time to come every week, and it's been fantastic, and it's only going to get better as we move along. Hey, don't forget my next guest, Mike Dunleavy. Hey, he's coached the Lakers, the Bucks, the Blazers, the Clippers, and he made each of these teams better. Remember the Lakers, he took over from Pat Riley, but they had a little bit down year, and he brought them back to the NBA Finals unexpectedly so that year. He's also played in the NBA for a dozen-plus years, and he's now the head coach at Tulane. So we'll have him coming up next right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back, Crescent City. And I always love to hear the sounds from my man Big Sam from Big Sam's Funky Nation. By the way, don't forget, we have a bunch of musicians coming in the next few weeks. You're going to love that. But my next guest, it's a basketball bonanza. We just had Final Four coach John Brady. Well, now we have a guy that coached in the NBA Finals, a guy named Magic Johnson in his last run to the finals, that first year that Michael Jordan won. You remember that one back in 1991. His name is Mike Dunleavy, and now, well, he's a New Orleanian. He's living here, coaching the Tulane Green Wave, and for the second time, welcome back to the show, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's great to have you back. First of all, I got to ask the question, how's it been living in New Orleans now that you've been here for almost a year?
Oh, it's been great. Really love it here. People are great. The school is great. You know, it was exactly what I hoped it would be. It's a process, but you know, our players have been very much engaged, and I think they're getting better. It hasn't necessarily translated into wins right now, but you know, guys are getting all new career highs, etc., and we're getting closer. But we've got some, you know, good recruits on the horizon, and I think a real positive future ahead of us.
And we're going to talk a bunch about that Tulane thing, but I want to we had Coach on back in June, right? Not long after he got the job here in New Orleans for the Tulane Green Wave, but we talked a lot about your NBA career, long-time career, about a dozen plus years if you count the player coaching years, and also over 20 years as a head coach in the NBA. But I got to ask you real quick, when you left being a player finally, I know you were an assistant coach for a bit and you became a player coach for a little while again, but your first head coaching gig was with the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, they had just come off of 5 championships in the 80s. Obviously, we know the players, Kareem, Magic back then. I know you didn't have them all, but Worthy and all those guys. But you still had a pretty good team, and you actually took them to, I think, a little place where I didn't think a lot of people expected at the time because they thought they were over the hill. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what was it like going to the finals in your first year with a guy like Magic Johnson?
Yeah, no, it was great. The Portland Trail Blazers had that year with Drexler and Duckworth and Kersey and Porter and that group, Buck Williams.
Right.
They were the favorites. They had the best record in the league. We upset them in the finals of the West. And it was terrific. I mean, I did have Magic. I did have James Worthy and Sam Perkins, Vlade Divac, and Byron Scott were our starters.
Right.
And, you know, people maybe don't remember this. We went to Chicago the first game. We beat them there on a Sam Perkins three-pointer.
The Big Smooth.
And then, unfortunately for us, in Game 2, in the first quarter, James Worthy pulled his hamstring, and I think it was hamstring or groin, one or the other, but he never returned. So you know, he was our Jordan stopper. He was, you know, James was at 6'9".
He was the guy.
Incredibly athletic. You know, he was so versatile for us. He played really more like a guard. He could break your press. You know, the press. He'd put him in the middle of a press and catches it and goes attack. And many people remember him with basically that. He used to do that Statue of Liberty jump.
He held that ball up. I mean, it's crazy.
Straight up and just, you know, just bring it down.
Well, he's my favorite college player ever. I mean, that championship game when they won with Michael Jordan, obviously with Big Smooth Perkins, was right here in New Orleans where they beat Georgetown. I'm a junior in high school, and to me, it's like my favorite sporting event of all time, until the Saints won the Super Bowl, of course. But talk about coaching Magic Johnson. I mean, you're talking about when in everybody's book, he's a top 5 player, right? Some might say the best player of all time, certainly in the conversation. What's it like coaching Magic and then coaching the next year when he announced that he had HIV?
Well, he was great to coach. First of all, for any coach out there, I mean, Greg Popovich, anybody who's had kind of great success, they would tell you that when your best player is also your hardest worker, that sets the tone for everybody else. I mean, I know that as a rookie coach, you know, a lot of times you could be a little bit insecure.
Sure.
And so I play him like longer minutes that I just want to make sure we got the win. And some people are like, well, you could have taken him out 2 or 3 minutes earlier. I'm like, yeah, I want to make sure here. And so, but the next day I'd come to practice that, you know, Magic, I played you last night, you know, too many minutes. So I think what I'm going to do is, you know, like, I'm going to let you sit out practice today. And, you know, and he would like, Coach, I can't sit out practice today. I said, if I sit out practice today, then what are the other guys going to do? They'll slack off on you. No, I'm playing.
That's the mentality you have to have. That's Jordan-esque as well. But I have to ask you a question. I think I have a card here that has you guarding Magic Johnson back in the day, or he's guarding you in this picture. What was this like?
Well, the good news for me was that we played them in the playoffs in '81, and we beat them in a 3-game series. They were the number 1 seed. We were like the 8th seed.
Wow.
And we upset them.
Sidney Moncrief, that group of players?
Well, actually, that was with the Bucks. I was with the Houston Rockets.
Okay,
So
that was the Bucks
team.
picture. But okay, well, yeah, the Houston Rockets team beat them. That's right.
But we beat them, and that's when they changed the rule. Instead of 3-game mini-series, they went to 5. And now they've gone to 7.
Right.
They're trying to ensure that the best team moves on. You know, that you can get a little bit lucky in a 3-game series. It's tough to get lucky in a 7-game series.
No doubt about it. I know. I remember when Dikembe Mutombo was with the Nuggets. They got that big upset on Seattle. Hey, as far as your playing career, I have some cards going through. I know you were a rookie with the 76ers when they came. I'll never forget this because I was a kid at the game when they came to town with Dr. J, George McGinnis, Doug Collins. You look a little bit like Doug right there back in his old days. But talk about being on this star-studded team, because talent-wise, to me, at least for flashiness and excitement, they were as good as it gets.
You know, over time, there's been a couple of kind of rock star teams in the NBA. You know, my 76ers team, when we got Dr. J, was one. I mean, when I say that, it means literally we sold out every venue on the road.
Yep.
Okay, the Lakers with Magic. You know, we did the same thing, and then Michael Jordan, of course,
yes.
and you know, it goes on and on. The major stars who, you know, just such attractions that the fans come out to see. Right now, you know, obviously it's Cleveland with LeBron and Golden State with, you know, with Steph Curry
sure.
and then their group of guys. Oh yeah, no, it was just amazing. The great thing about it for a player, you know, when you're playing in that kind of an atmosphere every single night, it's so easy to play. I mean, because you get up for it. You know, the tough days are when, you know, you're on a team and you go someplace that they don't draw well, the fans aren't into it, and you kind of go into an empty building.
It's hard.
It's
hard.
Particularly in the dog days of
right.
you know, February and March, when
right.
you get into the end of the season, getting into the 60s and 70s of games before you get to the playoffs. You know, and maybe you've already got your seeding.
What was your toughest time? I mean, since you're talking about that, what was your time when you had to deal with it?
Well, I would say that time because, again, you've already established.
Well, which
stuff.
team? I mean, what?
You know, I was very fortunate. Virtually on all the teams I played on, and we went to the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
Back in the early '80s, I played on 3 Final Four teams,
yes.
3 different Final Four teams in 4 years. I played
nice.
for the Rockets, the Spurs, and the Bucks. You know, we went to the finals
yep.
with the Rockets. We went to the Western Conference Finals with the Spurs against the Lakers, and then with the Milwaukee Bucks, we went to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics.
And that's the Moncrief teams, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know what you're talking about because I remember being a producer when the Hawks were like 13 wins, and then also was Craig Sager's producer in 96, 97, 98, where we went to every Michael Jordan game during the entire playoff run, and it was a rock star show like I've never seen with the lasers and stuff. So I've seen both ends, not quite like you as a player and a coach, but as a coach, what's your best in memory that comes to you first?
Well, you know, when we beat Portland in the finals of the West, you know, we were at home and the ball was rolling. Magic took the basketball and threw it like 50 feet up in the air.
Right.
And by the time it landed, the buzzer went off. You know, he just had a sense in his head.
That's right. I remember this.
He had such a
That's
sense
right.
of timing in his
right.
head. It was a loose ball, and he got it.
Yeah, you just throw it up and let the clock run, right?
He just threw it up in the air so high and just let the clock run out.
Now, if it hit one of those screens, you might have had taken it in from out of bounds if it was too soon. I have a quick question about this. You coached Portland, and was this the years that they were known as the Jailblazers?
I did. I took over a team that was known as the Jailblazers, but we quickly turned that around.
You were great.
We had some really good teams. You know, went to the general manager at the time, and I said, listen, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, you guys are real athletic teams. You really, you know, have a lot of talent, but if you really want to win in this league, you've got to have character.
Yes.
And so bottom line is, I said, I get your plight, and I'm going to take guys that I don't think that are great characters, and I'm going to get them numbers, okay, so that you're able to move them. Just don't fall back in love.
Right.
I start getting these guys stats. Don't fall back in love.
Right.
We got to make sure we make the moves, and we did. And we, you know, unfortunately, we didn't get over the hurdle. We lost to eventual champions a couple of years in the conference finals. Lost to the Spurs one year, and the Lakers, and they both won the championships.
Great teams. I remember them well. And you did some great things with the Clippers. People forget that as well. But I want to talk about your time here in New Orleans. You used the word character, and I had Troy Dannon on back, I guess it was early in the fall, and talking about all the new coach hires, and that's the word he used when hiring the coaches he just got to come to Tulane. You're one of them, but that's the word he used specifically for you. When you were talking to him, how did this all come about? Because people are like, wow, NBA player, NBA coach, never coached in college. Can you tell people from New Orleans and the surrounding areas around here, how'd you get to New Orleans?
Yeah, so interesting enough, you talk about my Clippers teams, and virtually I went into an organization that was one of the worst in the NBA and built it up. I drafted, Chris Kaman,
yes,
Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, all All-Stars, and had this team on the rise, but had an owner in Donald Sterling who would get this wild hair at times and decide, and he did this in business well, he decides he's not going to pay you. And so just to get some money back, and he wanted a couple $1 million back, and it was like, come to my house with a gun and rob me. I said no. So I fought it. Went 18 months with that, and then I had a group that was trying to buy the Pelicans. We actually had the Pelicans. I think it was like for $338 million.
That's right.
And on the last day,
that's right.
The banker advised our guys to lower their bid by $10 million. They did. David Stern then got Mr. Benson to step up to the plate, and he bought the team.
So
we missed. That was kind of a dumb move, I thought, at the time.
For $10 million.
Exactly.
I mean, what are we talking about
had a
here?
chance to own an NBA team. But I met a lot of people down here at that point in time, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law here, so I knew Tulane very well. And I started to look into the college game because I was spending a lot of time with my son Baker, who was the associate head coach at Villanova, with Jay Wright, and then with Larry Brown at SMU over in Dallas. And I was going to these practices, and I'm like, God, I really love this. I love to teach, and I think that I think this is the next step. So I started looking into it. Then I realized that most of these schools were hiring search firms to do the hiring. And so I went to New York, met with Korn Ferry, went to Atlanta, met with Daniel Parker.
Right.
And then there was an article about a school that I was interested in, and Fran Fraschillo from ESPN wrote it. He went to my high school in Brooklyn. I called him up. I said, hey, Fran, how accurate is what you're writing about this school? And he said, no, it's just a fluff piece. I have no inside information. He says, why? And I said, well, I have interest. He said, you interested in college? He goes, would you have any interest in Tulane or St. Louis? And I said, Tulane, why? He goes, because my friend, he's running a search for this.
Wow, okay.
And so I said, yeah. And so I met with him the next day, and within a week, that day, he started asking me all these questions, like, who would you hire? And once I told him, he goes, how do you know these people? I said, I know everybody. I've been in this league.
I've been around.
I've got 3 sons.
Right, exactly.
One went to Duke, one went to Villanova, one went to USC. So I've come into contact with all the AAU guys, everybody. And he goes, okay, I've got to put you in front of Troy Dannon. He says, you're going to love this guy. And he said, I think this is a perfect match. And I talked to Troy on the phone the next day, and we hit it off on the phone. And I was going up to the Big East tournament to see Villanova play. He flew up to New York. We met, and we had a deal done within a week.
What a great run. By the way, congrats on that. But you speak of Villanova, your son Baker wins the national championship as the associate head coach. That was a magical run, and I know you were at some of the games.
I was at all the games. That was,
it
was tremendous.
Yeah,
it was fabulous. I was doing, between his games and doing NBA TV, I was crisscrossing, to make all his games.
Well, I was in New Orleans when your son got traded this year to Atlanta because they play in the Hawks. I used to work on the broadcast, so I'm talking to Dominique and Bob Rathman. And they said, at halftime, I said, why is Kyle Korver not playing? He's dressed. He's out there. He goes, he just got traded to Cleveland. And I'm not sure he even knows yet, but he's got to be figuring something's going on. But Mike didn't show up right away. Your son Michael, I guess. Is he happy in Atlanta?
He's totally happy in Atlanta.
Okay.
I'm not sure, kind of what was going on there, but it had to do with, I'm not sure what direction they were going. As far as, they were making moves, I think, to maybe try to get younger or do whatever. And, I think there were a lot of teams interested in Mike in terms of trading for him.
Sure.
So I think they held off a couple of days basically because there were talks going on of Atlanta moving him on to some contending teams. So it wasn't him saying, I don't want to go to Atlanta.
Right. No, I knew, because I heard all the talks. But at first, everybody was like, when's he going to play? Korver's in uniform because he played against the Pelicans when they upset Cleveland. Let's go to Tulane. I want to talk about the future and your vision right now. I know you've been handicapped by, not maybe having the players that fit your system yet, but I want to get some Tulane people excited about what's in the future for them.
Well, first of all, I've been very excited, about coming to Tulane, and everything here has been terrific. The players have been very much engaged. They've been great. I think they've gotten a lot better. I think they've learned a lot, and I couldn't say any better things about them. For our future, though, we have a couple of players signed for next year already. We've got two big kids from South Sudan who play at the Patrick School in New Jersey, the old St. Pat's.
Yeah.
They're one of the top programs in the country.
Of course, yeah. Al Harrington and a bunch of guys play there.
And our kids, we have Boy Akoka, who's 7 feet tall with a 7'7" wingspan.
Right.
And Bull Ejang, who's 6'10" and pretty skilled. And as freshmen come in, I'm not sure of how big the impact can be right away, but in 2 or 3 years, I think they're going to be pretty special big men.
Real quick, talk about some of the guys you have right now. I mean, the Cam Reynolds, the Kane Harrises, obviously Melvin Frazier, and other players that you have on this team. Malik Morgan, a New Orleans native.
Yeah,
squad.
We've got a bunch of guys I think have had great years for us. 2 seniors, Malik Morgan, which you just mentioned.
Right.
Malik, very solid player. He leads our team in assists. Rebounds great for a guard. He's taken on a bit of a leadership role of our team. Another senior is our center, and Ryan Smith.
Yeah.
Again, he's tripled his output. He averaged about 2 or 3 points a game last year. He's at 9 points. He's had 5 or 6 double-doubles in the last 6 or 7 games, playing at a pretty high level.
I've noticed.
Really good. His low post game is coming along. Developed this hook shot. Got him in really great shape. He runs the floor great. Cam Reynolds is our leading scorer. He's gone from 6 or 7 points a game last year to 16 to 17
he looks
a game.
great, man. I'm telling you.
He's a good shooter and really done a nice job, and we're excited about he'll be back next year for one more year. And then some of our other those are the only guys that we have that are upperclassmen.
Right.
2 seniors and a junior, and everybody else are freshmen and sophomores. And you mentioned Melvin Frazier is he's a big time athlete, great defender. And his offensive game is growing. And we have a freshman point guard that's starting.
Yes.
For us, Ray Onembo, who I think is really going to over time have a chance to be special. He right now as a freshman, which is unusual, he can guard anybody at the point guard spot, big, small, quick, whatever they are. He does a great job defending. So his game has grown. He's off the last couple of games. He had 13 on the road against UConn and 15 on the road against East Carolina. So. Again, we're really pleased with his progress.
As I wrap up, I have to ask you, Carnival season is here. Mardi Gras, have you experienced this yet? Because it's right around the corner.
I have. Back in the late 70s, I came through here and visited my now brother-in-law. He was at the time a law student at Tulane. And so I had a little bit of experience. And he's majorly involved in all that. He's asked me to go on certain things with him. And I have to see where my off days come in and try to experience it some more.
Well, Coach, you have the tradition. We had you sign a Saints ball last time. I know the Tulane people would get crazy if I had him sign this LSU ball. But thanks to Travis
First
Jewett.
of all, I wouldn't sign the LSU ball.
You wouldn't do that. Absolutely not. But we have a Tulane helmet. Thanks to the baseball coach who was on a couple weeks ago. So we have a silver pen. We got the new tradition with the Tulane. I'm fired up. I want to thank Scotty Rogers and everybody in the Tulane department, Adam Miller, for getting me that. And have a great gift certificate for a wine bistro that's literally in your neighborhood. Like I'm telling you, on Maple between Carrollton and Broadway. I know you might not live right there, but I know you work
Absolutely.
Right there.
Great.
Yeah. And I know you like fine wine.
Thanks so much.
And fine art. Coach, it's been great.
Appreciate
been an honor for me. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And by the way, I want to thank all my guests. John Brady, who was just on right before this, Lyons Yellin from WWL, and Jamie Howard, who couldn't make it because his family's sick and he's taking care of them. Get better, family. We'll have you on. Jamie, former LSU quarterback star from the 90s. He'll be back on in a couple of weeks. Hey, from everybody here at WLAE and CST, thank you for joining us on Primetime Sports. See you next week.